And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Wonder Woman. All the world is waiting for you. It's called Wonder Woman Challenge of the Amazons, and it's about Princess Diana and her fellow Amazons defending an island against an invasion. Not Nazis, but different gods or evil people like Ares or the cheetah. And it's a cooperative game in which you're working together to stop this. I was excited about this because Prospero Hall designed this, and they've done some really cool stuff. In fact, one of their cooperative games from last year, Horrified, is one of my favorite cooperative games I've ever played. I'm looking for stuff like this that will be great for people to play, maybe never played games before. This from Ravensburger and Prospero Hall seems like a pretty good combo, and the theme is good. Let's check it out. In this game, players are working together to defend their island. You have a defense of 20. You don't want that to get down to 0. And you're fighting against an enemy, and you're trying to get their health down depending on who they are. So if you're playing Ares, his health is 17, the cheetah 14, and Circe 12. Although just because they have lower health doesn't make them easier. Not to mention you can make their health more difficult based on if you think they're too easy to beat. There are different cubes involved in the game that are going to be different depending on what enemy you fight. So these are, for example, Servants of War with Ares, Lycanthropes for the cheetah, and Wolf Amazon for Circe. Each of the bad guys come with their own deck of cards. Now, what players are going to be doing after they choose which of the Amazons they want to be playing this round, each Amazon is going to have a special ability. At the beginning of a round, you'll draw the top card. You'll ignore everything on it, look at the bottom, and that's where Ares will go. Now, each of these people is going to play differently. So I'm just talking about Ares, and then I'll mention a little bit about the other ones. So here he goes to the Temple of Aphrodite, and you are going to put 2 of his corrupted warriors there with him. Then you're going to draw more cards based on how many players are in a game. So if it's a 5-player game, you would draw 3 more cards, and you do what it says. It says deploy 2 corrupted Amazons to the Watchtower. So the Watchtower is right here. If there's any warriors in that region, they're all replaced. Deploy 2 of these guys to Ares region, and all the corrupted things move 1 region to the palace. And then same thing. Alrighty, so that's what the bad guy does. Now it's for the good guy's turn. Now what the Amazons do in their turn is they're going to be drawing cards from this hero deck. Everybody's going to have 3 cards placed face down in front of them and 2 cards face up, looking at these different cards. Now at the beginning of the game, you're going to be throwing in some artifacts into the deck, and if these come up, you can try to get them. You'll take the item that matches that artifact, put it out on the board, and you have to go over to that area to get these artifacts. They give you special abilities. But everyone can see the face-up cards, but you're not allowed to look at the face-down cards, even your own. And some of the characters have special abilities during this phase where they can move, draw more face-up or face-down cards, etc. Now, while these cards are face-up, everyone can discuss what you're going to do next. This is called the strategize phase. Everyone talks about it, blah, 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 blah. Once you're done, you then will pick up your face-down cards, look at the cards that you've gotten. You are not allowed to talk during this phase, and each person is going to play a card, 3 cards face down to the action slots here, discarding the rest. Once everyone's done that, you'll reveal your action 1, and now you can talk again and decide what you're going to do with these cards. Most of these cards have symbols at the bottom of them. They're called emblems, and they're in different categories, and you can pick one of them and do all the things of that emblem. So this is just 3, but it says if 2 or more heroes played cards with the same name for this action, double their emblems. This one says double this card's emblems if it's your first action. So you get a certain amount that you can spend. These emblems will do for different things. The movement's going to let you move around. You can spend it to move around the board. You can spend swords to take off these Servants of War. So let's say my first action, I move down here. So I'm fighting against Ares. I can also spend 2 swords to remove a Servant of War. So maybe I had 4. So I can get rid of 2 of these. I can go down there and use my swords to fight against those. You can use 4 of anything to hit Ares. You're going to need to do that to make sure that his health goes down. And meanwhile, you're going to have to fight off these other things, corrupted Amazons that showed up here. I'll need 3 of the books to do that. Blockades will show up, so you're going to need to use those. You can also go here and in these spots, and you can recruit Amazon warriors. And as long as you keep them from getting corrupted, if you're in an area, you can always spend these, and they basically, for each one that you spend, you add 1 to your action. So if I'm attacking Ares, and I have 4, and I spend another 4 of these warriors, I can hit him twice. After everyone's done doing this, we go back, we reset, and do it again. When fighting Ares, one player is going to start the game with this special sword, and you're going to go around and collect these blessings to fill the sword up, and that player must do the final blow to Ares. Ares cannot die without that person. If you're playing against the cheetah, there's artifacts. Basically, the cheetah is going to be running through her deck as fast as possible. These artifacts will be added each time she runs through her deck, and if 3 of them get added to the deck, then she will win. And Circe is running around the board, turning all the Amazons into different animals, and also making beacons and things that make it harder to kill her. Each of them plays fairly differently, although the basic concepts are the same, and players are either going to defeat the enemy or lose their defense. You lose defense, for example, in Ares at the end of each round, by every spot on the board that has an orange cube in, you will lose 1 defense for. So right now, 1 for this area. Each purple cube that's in the palace will cause 2, and you definitely don't want that to happen, so you'll probably want to fight those off before, since especially they showed up in the palace right now. So you got to be careful going around keeping these cubes down so they don't destroy your defense. This is essentially a mass market game, so I'm not expecting super high quality. The miniatures are fine. I kind of wish they were different colors. I mean, they're all golden and that looks cool, but you have to remember which one is yours. You can look at the mold, but again, different colors would have helped. I was initially a little annoyed that these cubes, they're fine, they're cubes, but I wish they had little miniatures of what they were. And then I realized that they're more versatile by being the cubes, because the different gods are going to be using them in different ways. Symbology I'm really happy with about. These cards here tell you exactly what you do to start a game, what you do to start a round, end of a round, how you lose defense for each of these different people, and what they stand for here. And there's different sides for different number of players. The art in the card is fine. I would have made these symbols at the bottom the same color, like I would have made books green and this blue or something, just so they're easier to match. But I don't know. It's not that big of a deal. They're a little boring, I think, on how they look. Adaptable, tactical, nimble, experienced. That's fine. But even the bad guys' decks are, again, ominous, malevolent, unsettling, haunting, arcane. The art on them is okay. It's just very generic. It doesn't. I want to see battles between the Amazonas and the bad guys. But the board itself, really well done artwork. I like how it looks. Again, my only complaint is that when you're looking for something, there's a small name here, and it's not instantly like, oh, the gardens, where's the gardens? They're here. It looks good, but the whole thing just could look better. It's a decent looking game, and again, it's decent for the mass market. I just wish there was more Wonder Woman in the game. I mean, I like this art, the stuff that's on the rule book, but there's not as much of that in the game itself. Well, there you go. Despite the fact that I'm not a huge fan of all the components in here, the gameplay itself is really solid. First of all, it's nice that there's essentially 3 games in the box. It's neat that you can fight against each of these enemies. They each fight a very different way, and you'll have different things coming back and forth between, depending on what group of heroes that you take. And it scales pretty well. I will say it is not a simple game. I mean, not simple. It is not an easy game. Not that I found anyway. I have yet to beat it, although I feel like it's very beatable. It's definitely a game that when you play it, you're like, oh, this is how we should be working together. This is what works well together. What I find completely fascinating about the game is the fact that it deals with the quote-unquote alpha player very well. Alpha player is when one person tells everybody else what to do. A very real problem in cooperative games. I've heard people say that it's a group problem rather than a game problem, but I like when a game gives a way to counter against that. And here you can do it. You can talk about it, but you have limited information. You don't know the face down cards, even your own that you have. So you talk back and forth. You say, I'm going to go here and I'm going to fight these people because I'm pretty sure I'm going to draw some cards that help me with that. You look at them, that's not what you drew. So now you got to figure out what you're going to do without communicating with everybody else. So you make battle plans, but the face down cards are a nice way to recognize that things change on the battlefield itself. And I found that to be easily the best part of the game. And when you do stuff and the combos work, sometimes by accident, it feels fantastic. And sometimes you're like, I love it when a good plan comes together. Although on the flip side, sometimes the plan doesn't come together at all. So I think this one's pretty cool. I'm glad this is out on shelves. It's Wonder Woman. I mentioned the components weren't real strong on it. The theme works pretty well. You find the lasso of truth, and it seems like half the stuff is Diana's and everyone else is sharing it and running around. But it feels good, and your special power feels neat. It feels really cool when you put this stuff together and fight. There's definitely luck. Sometimes a bunch of cards come out, and you're like, well, we weren't going to win this round anyway. And in that regard, this game has a lot of similarities. The pandemic and the cubes being clear cubes aren't going to change people's minds on that because it's going to feel very similar. But I think this game could be taught to people who've never played a cooperative game before, which I did. It can be taught to people who like the DC universe or maybe just the Wonder Woman movie. But even if neither of those interest you, I still think it's a very cool, straightforward, solid cooperative game. And if this is going to show up on mass market stores, then I think the hobby has a bright future ahead of it. Dice Tower Judgment approved.